LEGO takes pride in being a wholesome, family-friendly toy company and works hard to maintain that image, but surprisingly, they aren't afraid to get a little gruesome under the right circumstances. Let's explore the dark and gory underlying messages behind notable LEGO sets and minifigures. Jurassic World has become an extremely successful theme for LEGO, and while the latest movies are decidedly family-friendly, the original Jurassic Park from 1993 was a much darker, scarier, and bloodier movie than some people might remember. Well, it seems like LEGO remembers. While working your way through the Jurassic Park T-Rex Rampage build, you'll recreate several of the film's most iconic scenes, but there's one section that made a few builders stop in their tracks. In Book 2 of the instructions, specifically Step 66, you need to connect a clip to another piece and then stick a translucent red 1x1 plate onto the whole thing. While this might not look like much at first, this is actually a recreation of the scene where they find Samuel L. Jackson's character's severed arm. This is literally a bloody limb, certainly not the kind of thing that people expect to spot in a LEGO set. But you see, this isn't anything new. When LEGO launched modern minifigures in 1978, they were an immediate smash hit, and people simply couldn't get enough of them. In the late 1970s through the mid-1980s, we got a lot of very small builds that contained a lot of minifigures, and one of the earliest of these is also quite possibly the darkest set that LEGO has ever made. Take a look at this set, titled Knight's Procession. It was released in Europe in 1979 and hit store shelves in the USA in 1981. This small package came with 6 minifigures and a total of just 39 pieces, and depicted 4 swordsmen and 2 guards escorting a small wagon containing something. At first, it's not exactly clear what it is, but it must be important to get such a large group of guards. It's worth mentioning that this isn't a large horse-drawn cart meant to carry weapons or equipment. No, this is a hand-drawn pull cart designed for narrow city streets and fitting through doors into buildings. But the name of this set isn't simply supply wagon or something similar. In fact, these guys aren't merchants at all. An important clue comes from the name of the set. The word procession, at least in English, has a very specific meaning. While at its core it simply means a group of vehicles traveling for a ceremony, this word is mostly tied to a single type of ceremony, a funeral. Funeral processions are very common and can be found in religions and cultures around the world. In medieval Europe, where the castle line was set, the bodies of the fallen would have been transported to their final resting place in a procession. With that in mind, just take a look at the contents of that cart. We've got red, yellow, and blue bricks, the main colors of these knights in these early castle sets. There's a 2x2 red brick, which is about the same shape and size as a minifigure torso, a 2x1 yellow brick, which could represent legs, and a single 1x1 round yellow brick, which represents a minifigure head. Wow, this set is very sad. May they rest in peace. Turning to sets with a little less ambiguity and even more gore, we've got the legendary Tower of Orthanc from 2013. While this incredible build is jam-packed with Easter eggs and hidden play features, there's one particular detail that's very relevant to today's video. All the way down in the tower's deepest, darkest dungeon, we see the remains of a few unlucky prisoners. While the bones and skulls themselves aren't truly uncommon in LEGO dungeons, what's under them is. Each of the 2 bones is held in place by a single red clip, which sure does look a lot like a puddle of blood. I mean, LEGO could have very easily made these gray, white, or literally any other color, so the choice of red here seems pretty intentional. Moving on, there's simply no denying what we're building in this next set, which is the mill from the Pirates of the Caribbean theme released in 2011. Hidden inside of the chest is the heart of Davy Jones. This element is incredibly rare and surprisingly valuable, selling for about $10 US a piece. Why? Well, aside from this set, it's only ever popped up in one other place, the haunted house from the Monster Fighters theme in 2012. While putting this set together, the first thing you do is build several small pieces of furniture that will later decorate the house. On page 8 of the instructions, you'll need to grab one of these human heart pieces and put it under glass. This is pretty gross, but totally makes a lot of sense as a decoration for a room inhabited by a vampire. One other detail from this same set can be spotted on the zombie chef. This guy's shirt is very messy, with mysterious red liquid splatters on the front. I'd like to hope that this is just the result of an extra messy spaghetti dinner last night, but knowing Lord Vampire's decorating tastes, I think it's safe to assume that this isn't pasta sauce. However, this isn't even the grossest or goriest recipe movie in LEGO history. 2019's The Rise of Voldemort is an incredibly faithful recreation of the pivotal scene from The Goblet of Fire, where Voldemort is brought back to life and features what might be LEGO's single most disgusting step ever. On page 47 of the instructions, you need to add 4 very specific pieces to a giant cauldron, and each piece is somehow worse than the last. First up, you need to add a single translucent red element representing Harry's blood. While cooking with human blood is certainly gross, this is somehow the least disgusting part of this entire recipe. On top of Harry's blood, you also need to add a single bone taken from the grave of Voldemort's father, which forms the center of this set. Next up, the recipe calls for a single black clip piece, which is a little bit odd at first until you remember what ingredients were needed. That's a human hand, specifically Wormtail's hand, which he cut off just moments before. As a neat little reference, the Wormtail figure in this set comes with a silver hand to represent the new magical hand that Voldemort grants him. Lastly, you just need to add a baby. I mean, we all know that in the books this isn't actually a baby, but that LEGO element is officially called the infant/baby with stud, which makes it extra weird. Now, while most of these are smaller background details, there's at least one LEGO character who's gotten their hands particularly dirty. Prydac from the Bionicle line might not be the most popular set from this theme, but it definitely sent alarm bells ringing when it was released. This mostly all-white build has a few very prominent red marks, and their placement is more than a little suspicious. With bright red on the claws and all around the mouth, it seems pretty obvious what this guy's been up to recently. Another LEGO character who seems to have a little trouble controlling their appetite is Morbius from the Miles Morales vs. Morbius set. While the film may have been a critical flop, that didn't stop LEGO from releasing this admittedly pretty cool set. But why is it in this video? Well, take a look at what everyone's favorite vampire is holding. That's very clearly a vial of blood. Now, moving on, it turns out that there's no shortage of characters and minifigures who seem like they've seen better days. The Star Wars line of sets has a surprising number of eaten, battered, and bloody minifigures that are worth quickly mentioning. I mean, just take a look at this version of Anakin from the Darth Vader transformation set for one of the most disturbing minifigures that LEGO has ever released. Covered head to toe in burns, honestly, this one just hurts a little bit to look at. Looking at the Rogue Shadow set from 2008, we've got another Sith overcoming serious bodily harm. Starkiller has definitely seen better days as his torso is covered in bandages and his injuries seem to be bleeding through. But that's not all, because the Republic gunship is a fan favorite set with 1,175 pieces and 6 minifigures. However, only one of them fits today's video. Padme has some torn clothes, but otherwise seems fine. That is, until you look at her back and notice the few large bloody scratches. And while most of these have been from licensed sets, LEGO's original themes aren't safe from a little blood either, it appears. Just take a look at Flash Turbo from the Racers theme. While you can't really tell with the helmet on, pop it off and you'll notice that this guy's sporting a serious head wound with blood seeping through his bandage. Someone get this guy a new bandage. A similar injury can be spotted on the Power Miners engineer from the Magma Mech build, though this guy seems to have gotten some slightly more modern medicine, as it looks like he might have a metal plate bolted over his injury. Whatever it is though, it didn't stop the bleeding. To highlight another minifigure from an original LEGO theme, just take a look at this version of Mac McCloud from the Golden Staff Guardian set. He seems like he's got a small scrape next to his eye, but that's not too bad. Looking at his torso though, you might think he's suffered a little bit more of a serious injury, as several large dark spots appear on his white shirt. Well, according to the part's official name, that's just mud, so this guy's probably mostly fine. Going back a little to the Monster Fighters theme, the Zombie Chef and Lord Vampire don't seem to be the only ones with an insatiable hunger. The Zombies is one of the best sets from this line and contains the rarest and most expensive minifigure from this series. It's also the minifigure that perfectly fits the bill for today's video. The Zombie Bride was only ever released in this set and has at least one gruesome feature. All around this blushing bride's mouth is dripping red liquid. Sure, this could be some old and runny lipstick, but when combined with the Zombie Chef's blood-stained clothes, I think that this minifigure is just a messy eater. Now, turning to LEGO's most successful original theme, Ninjago might be the last place you'd expect to find some blood and gore, but there's at least one minifigure with a stomach-turning design. This particular Garmadon minifigure variant has appeared in both the Temple of Resurrection set from 2018 as well as the Oni Titan. The focus here is his torso. I mean, just look at the purple blood dripping from a few open wounds. It even looks like an entire chunk of his chest has just been ripped out, leaving his ribs visible. Pretty gruesome stuff for what is officially a line aimed at younger kids, but hey, it's purple, so it's not too realistic. But there's another category of potentially gory minifigures that LEGO refuses to even touch. As a family-friendly company, LEGO has a very strict policy of not adapting anything that's, quote, adults only. For the United States, this means that any film with a R rating, or any TV show rated MA, simply won't ever be turned into an official LEGO product. Well, kind of. In 2023, LEGO released the second wave of their collectible minifigure series under the Marvel banner. Overall, this is a great collection featuring a few more niche Marvel characters. One of them was Echo from the then unreleased TV show by the same name. Well, it seems like a few things changed in between the time that LEGO approved this minifigure and when it was released as the Echo TV show, which came out with a TV MA rating, making this the only time that LEGO has ever released a figure with an adults-only franchise. Now, I can already hear some of you asking, what about the Punisher, or what about Deadpool? And that's a great point. Both of these characters have been released as LEGO, and both have starred in adult-rated franchises. So what gives? Well, for Deadpool, the only time he was released in a set was back in 2012, as part of the Wolverine's Chopper Showdown. This was under the X-Men line, and was several years before the first Deadpool movie was released. So at this point, he was only known for the comics. Now, it's worth pointing out that we did actually get a second version of Deadpool in the form of Sheriff Deadpool in 2018, 2 years after the rated R Deadpool movie. But this was a very limited Comic-Con exclusive, and buying one nowadays will run you about $1,600, so I hope you have some extra cash lying around. As for the Punisher, this minifigure was released several years after the show had already been cancelled. Additionally, this version of the character is based entirely on the comics and bears very little resemblance to the much grittier on-screen version. Nonetheless, what's great about minifigures is that you can take them apart to create new ones. But did you know that some LEGO sets are impossible to take apart? Click here right now to discover what makes them impossible to take apart, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel SpitBrix for more LEGO videos.